Ladies and gentlemen, with this, it is time for us to move ahead to our next conversation. We're talking about the digital powerhouse. Digital, of course, is seeing a surge, and the pandemic was the start, if we may say so, for the digital revolution in India. The most talked about is, of course, connected TV, and this has made brands, even traditional legacy brands, to go digital way to reach their target audience. The number of smart TVs in India has also significantly grown, and added to the inbuilt apps on smart TVs are also being a part of the TV manufacturers in India. We're looking at talking about how brands and advertisers looking forward to tap on the connected TV universe, and how is the technology adapting to this, becoming the enabler. With this and much more, of course, we've got a great set of panelists joining us. And as I can see the stage being set, it is my cue to call them up on stage.
Thank you for the introduction. Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today. I'm really excited to have this conversation with such stellar panelists with me. And I must say the Indian television folks have done a great job by, creating this panel. You have the whole ecosystem in front of you. You have the advertiser side people who are the buyer side. Then you have the seller side. We have our tech partners, our OEM partner, our SSP partners. So I'm sure it's going to be an interesting conversation. So let's begin with our topic today, which is the digital powerhouse, CTV, and a little bit background. We all have seen how digital has grown at a transformative pace in the last couple of years. In fact, last several years, and specifically after pandemic, which has been like a blessing in disguise for our industry, CTV has seen a great uptick in viewership data. If we talk about our Western counterparts, like markets like US and Europe, they've already started seeing 60% of the linear TV spends shift to the connected TV. So that's the power of the medium that we're seeing right now. And with all the conversations that I have with my tech partners and other publishers, the OTT players are highly bullish on CTV because of the audience engagement and also the monetization point of view. So having said that, I think there's still a bit of confusion around, what are the best practices, best buying practices for CTV, and what is achievable, what is not. With that, we'll start our conversation today, and I'll move to Prabhvir first. So Prabh, you have been at the forefront of the CTV ecosystem. So do you think that we have enough people on the CTV right now that we have reached a critical mass to be taken seriously in India?
I think the critical mass question is quite intriguing what to start with. For me, I started digital back in 1999. So I've been looking at critical masses for quite a bit. Does anybody in the audience know how many internet users were there in 2006? Any guesses?
Any guesses?
In 2006, we know how many internet users are there today. It's about 600, 700 million, but how many of you were there in 2006? Yeah, you're close. So there were about 21 million internet users back in 2006, and that's when I started my career in digital advertising. And we used to sell paid search advertising back in the day. Fast forward to 2023, I think CTV, connected TV is in the similar number game. But what differs CTV vis-a-vis the internet penetration back in the day was internet was still a one-to-one. And we now know, and I think during the day, it is very well established that TV is a multi or a co-viewing device. On average, 3.5 people are watching it. So there are a lot of numbers being shown throughout the day. 22 million TVs. I've seen 36 million TVs, 60 million TVs as such. But from the lens of Samsung ads, we estimate India has about 25 million active TVs. And if you multiply that by 2.5, you're looking at nearly about 60 million odd viewers. So we have reached critical mass in terms of reaching the right number of people. We just need to have enough dollars chasing it for now.
Perfect. Thank you for that. I think that sets the base for our conversation. We know that we have enough scale to, start our CTV advertising. So I'll move on to the women leader in our house, and I'll start with Sonam. Sonam, we have seen that generally brands have separate offline and online teams, right? The TV mandate generally lies with the offline teams, and then with programmatic CTV coming into the picture, how difficult or how challenging is it for you guys from a brand point of view to integrate both these teams? And how do you truly deliver a completely integrated media plan for the big screen?
I think this is a very, very apt question that has been faced by many advertisers, and this is a concern that happens with the agencies as well. There's a saying that if you have to get the world to change, you have to start with the change at your own home. And that's exactly what we did at Mahindra. At Mahindra, we restructured our team and we saw to it that our agency team mirrored us. So we consolidated our offline and our digital, and we created this role called as integrated marketing. This was primarily made so that if there are any kind of impact properties, if there are big properties where evaluation is concerned, it is not seen with the lens of offline or digital, but in fact, it has to be seen from the lens of the consumer. I think what we had forgotten in all of this was the media became the primary concern rather than the consumer. And that's what we restructured, and this is how we changed at our house, and we saw to it that we kept everything consolidated, even though the execution was done by specialist teams, but it all came at one apex. And the past examples and associations that we have done, we were the presenting sponsors at a leading football, and that's what we saw to it, that there was no sort of digital separate and offline separate, but a consolidation and an integration of mediums together.
Thank you for that. I think I'll move on to Samyukta. What are your thoughts on this?
So again, I think I'll mirror what Sonam said. Very, very interesting question. I'm going to borrow something from the previous session where you spoke about regionalization and localization being so huge today. And at Kaya, because we are very fragmented, we're there in 22 cities, but we don't have enough depth in each of those markets to actually, unfortunately, we can't use TV as a medium because it won't work. But I think what we've been doing very beautifully is, actually harnessing the power of a lot of regional print, a lot of regional radio, especially with the expansion that we've been doing with new clinics. That in conjunction with digital, I think has been working well for us. But was it easy? No, it wasn't. Because even I think within the agency structure to get offline, online teams to integrate, and a lot of it, I think as clients, it depends on your ability to brief. The right input always gives you the right output. So that clarity of thought kind of, does begin at home. So that's where we kind of started this journey of saying, how do we look at tofu, and then how do we kind of ensure what percentage goes there versus how do we then do attribution. Luckily for us, we have call center and, things like that. So there's a lot of other ways also to kind of get things in place. So yeah, that's where we are with our journey at the moment.
Got it. So Deepak, I'll now move on to you. Do you resonate with what Sonam and Samyukta feel at their organization, or things work differently at ICICI?
So I kind of resonate with what my fellow panelists have just shared. And I think it's extremely critical because I think in the last 2.5 years, pre-pandemic and post-pandemic, if you see, the adoption on digital has been an all-time high. And we've seen transformation happening across the board, right? And it's not age agnostic. Maybe the ability to adopt has been a little varied reference, but it's something which we've seen dominating as a habit across spectrum of consumers. At our end, as a business unit, so just to give you a little perspective on what we do, because normally people associate ICICI with the bank. I drive the ICICI Securities mandate, which is primarily investment conglomerate, which allows access to varied products and services around investment, loans, and so on and so forth. We've been probably one of the early fintech players, been in existence for over 2 decades. And pre-pandemic, a large chunk of our adoption used to be still relying heavily on the brick and mortar. Today, it's completely digital journeys and digital acquisition funnels that we've created in.
So from a marketing perspective, the way we've done is we've brought the entire teams together, with the brand being one key center and the entire digital ecosystem of performance and acquisition being another key leg part of the team. The way it operates is, for us, like some of my fellow panelists mentioned, we look at it from a customer lens, and I think a lot of data point is today available that you no longer have the comfort of getting the customer to you. You need to go to the customer, and therefore it's imperative that when you are defining your strategies, you need to look at it, ensuring that your customer has been kept at the center, and then arrive at your solutioning around it. I still see that challenging, and I think it's a narrative that is evolving and changing. We talk about the classic full funnel approach, but a lot of time the conversations are left at some leg of the funnel, and therefore the media mix tends to get skewed in that order. But my conscious effort within the team is that stack up your platforms along the funnel and then look at the efficiency of how you're really reaching out to your customer. From an agency perspective, I think the dilemma still persists. There still tends to be slicing the 100 rupees with a multiplier of 2 rather than making an effective plan which could marry the efficacy of what's the most optimum delivery format and bringing it together. It still happens to be an offline plus online rather than an integrated approach. I think that's something which we still need to evolve our agency partners, but yeah, that's the way we look at it.
That's an interesting point that you raised. Actually, I do have a follow-up question to all three of you, and I think especially the publishers in the house would like to know that who actually holds the budget for the CTV mandate? Does it lie with the offline teams or does it lie with the online teams? We should know whom to go after.
I think I'll take that question. At least when it comes to Mahindra, when it comes to the automotive division, there's only one person that you need to reach, and that's the integrated media head.
Okay, and what about you?
So at our end, it's the brand head who basically looks at the overall budget. So anything outside performance domain remains with the brand team, and then they kind of integrate it across the media delivery.
Harguneet, we have seen that programmatic CTV is increasingly becoming an important channel for both advertisers and publishers alike. So what do you think are some of the key factors or things that we should look at to select which is the perfect partner for us so that we can leverage this to its full potential?
Sure. So like I think a couple of folks said, keeping the consumer in mind. For CTV, the end consumer here is the viewer. So the viewer doesn't care whether it's linear, non-linear, CTV, whatever. The experience has to be very uniform. So you need a partner who can help you with that. It becomes very technical the moment you come onto the CTV front. So you need a partner who is able to build and who is able to create standardizations. As of now, the CTV space is slightly fragmented. So you need someone who can either build standardization or work with industry bodies to build and adopt standardizations. What we're doing at PubMatic is we're doing both. For example, something as simple as content object is something that we've been pushing. That's one. Second is technology is at its core essential because what you do for a VOD, video on demand versus live TV, the integrations, the way it actually works are very different. So you need a partner who is solid in tech and is able to help you with whatever is required from a technical aspect. Then the next would be it's a relationship game in the end. You will need people feet on street to work with advertisers, agencies together as well. That's a very essential angle. And last but not least is, like I said, standardization is key. So you need everybody in the ecosystem to be open and be willing to work together and share whatever problems, opportunities, and work towards building those techs and standardizations as well.
Great. That's interesting to know. I think for my next question, I'll again move back to Deepak here. We have seen that the biggest benefits of digital is targeting. And as Prabh mentioned, CTV is more of a co-viewing experience rather than a single viewing experience. And in a mobile-first market like India, it's difficult. Right? So my question to you is, are we going back to the linear TV way of planning, or are we going to be planning based on more content-led or audience-led?
So if you look at the digital ecosystem, we tend to kind of link it back to the audience we are going after. And we try to understand the affinity of his consumption across the digital ecosystem, right? Yes, the television buying used to be primarily driven by reach, but I think that's not really changed when it comes to, if we look at a CTV or a buy on the video, we would look at the reach still dominating. So in our perspective, I think it will still be a combination of the consumer at large. But yes, today digital does give you access to a lot of insights on the content packs that that the consumer is drawn to, and that probably is more relevant in the context of when we are looking at a CTV buy. Which on a television, you would be restricted in the context of some of your impact buys, but largely it would be a spread of a frequency-driven exercise, which would be spread across your channels that you would choose. But in the case of when you're looking at it in the digital ecosystem and in the CTV, I think a combination of audience and content both have an equal play-up opportunity for you to really leverage this.
Great. So traditionally, we have seen that large brands with bigger appetites, they have used TV as a medium for mostly awareness, and it was never a big deal in the past that if they're not reaching 100% to the targeted audience, because they know that at some point of time, you're still getting the airtime, right? You're still getting brand awareness and you're creating that brand recall. Now, cut to the recent times where we have grown digital maturity in the ecosystem and marketers coming in, looking out for targeted audiences at lesser the pricing. So from Mahindra's point of view, what is important for you? Is it more of a content-led buy? Again, the same question. Is it more important for a content-led buy or an audience-led buy?
I think, before we started our panel also, we were kind of discussing a very similar scenario that is going on. I think currently it is more important to understand what is the content that the audience is watching. And when you understand and grasp what is the content that they are watching, then it becomes media agnostic, whether it is on television, whether it is on digital, whether it's this handheld that I can't let go of even when I'm sitting on a stage right now. So something as important as a mobile phone also becomes critical for the audience. So first, understand what is the content and then layer it up with the thought of a media on it. What happens is when we go from linear to digital directly and focus all our spends there because it becomes more performance led, we are missing out on the top of the funnel. And the issue that happens is that this gets reflected, when you do your brand awareness scores. That's when you realize then probably you need to have mass media, which gives a halo effect across all other mediums. I think this is a critical thing that we should not dismiss just because of the lack of measurement. And even though when I say lack of measurement, it is very loosely termed because it's not that it's completely missing. It's just that it's not as effective as digital is being perceived as.
Okay, great. So I'll move on to Prab now. So Prab, we see that A-word, S-word, and fast growing simultaneously, both have their own, all of them have their own technicalities. Like A-word, you get to see the ads. Fast, it's a linear experience. And in S-word, you don't see the ad, but there are possibilities of brand integration, right? So what would be your advice to advertisers? Should they follow a separate creative strategy for all these channels, or does one size fits all?
I don't think that there is one size that fits all, because right on this panel we have different stakeholders taking decisions, and when different stakeholders take decisions, there are different matrices as well, and different industries or verticals also have different KPIs attached to the marketing plans. So for example, I know ICICI will category chase for leads, versus Akaya might just share drive campaigns for creating awareness or getting footfalls, etc. So there is no one size that fits all. But what we have seen, and what I have seen over the last 3 years, switching from digital and looking at addressable TV, that the theme of content does play a significant role. There are some topical events like FIFA that happened last year. You have IPL now coming up, which does garners a lot of viewership, and that is where brands do want to be seen or be present at. And I think choices for the end users will remain similar to the choices for the advertiser will remain. What ultimately determines where does the advertiser invest money is how closer they are getting to their potential audience, because I think no matter how much we talk about targeting and addressability, you're still dealing with some bit of approximation. And then once you've invested in that, what's the business metric impact? And I think now more and more brands can take decisions much faster than waiting for a campaign to get over. So I see a lot of fluidity in the way campaigns get executed now versus maybe 4 or 5 years back. And advertisers are quick to react to how the eyeballs are shifting and then adjust their plans according to where the viewers are actually.
Great. I think that's great to know that there is some method to the madness that we have in CTV space. So moving on, I think measurement is also one topic that I would touch upon. It's quickly becoming a hot topic, specifically when you compare the linear TV effectiveness and how we, understand the effectiveness of the current CTV ecosystem. So my question, this one is for you, Deepak. I'll start with you. How do you evaluate the success or failure of your connected TV campaigns?
So I think this is still an emerging opportunity for us. While we pick up data points on what's happening in the some of the other geographies that it's really booming up. At our end, I think it's still emerging. Clearly, we see consumer adoption to smart TV scaling up. There is a multiplicity of brands which are offering smart TV like an hygiene factor. I mean, just pre-pandemic, we used to hear the word Amazon sticks. Today, that's no more a part of a conversation. It's a given that your TV is a smart TV, right? Again, reflecting back to the data, the content consumption, again, that's adding to the opportunity space that we see. From a metrics of evaluating the efficacy, I think it would still ride on the incremental reach that we are able to adapt over the linear TV. There were matrices around the XRR achieved with the YouTube advertising over television. So I think some of those metrics still hold true. You look at the incremental reach you're getting out of it. You look at the view through rates or the completion rates, which effectively are much better on the CTV environment. Some of these do add up to the metrics that we would look at. The third would be the surrogates around the surge on either the traffic or reference of your digital assets for in terms of visits to your sites, or brand conversation that you may pick up in regards to, say, social listening that you do. Some of these then come together to kind of effectively measure the impact. One of the other thing that, as a brand marketer or as a marketer, I would also be keen to explore. And like Prabhvir said, that there is room for experimentation. I think, hyperlocal campaign, and I heard Krishnan talk about it. I think from our category point of view, we are appealing to India and the Bharat at large. So at times we look at solutioning which allows us to experiment at a hyperlocal way. And that's where I think some of these ecosystem enablers will come handy for us.
Okay, great. Sonam, would you like to add something to it? How do you evaluate the success of your connected TV campaigns?
Yes, for us, what happens is that when it comes to CTV, I think this has become a hygiene when it comes to major metros. And depending on which brand we want to have a campaign, I think it's more imperative that what is the product category? Is the product something that's a mass product? Then definitely linear TV has to be a part of your plan. But if this product is targeted only to metros, only to certain households where you can have a lot of cohorts coming in, I think that's where CTV really plays a brilliant part, because it allows you to actually enter those homes and be a part of the viewing experience of the entire household. And that's the brilliance of CTV.
Great.
Just to add a slight counterpoint, right? CTV is growing. The entry point, the costs of your CTV, your actual televisions are probably at the lowest that they've ever been. So the connectivity barrier is going down, cost of TV barrier is going down. And the first question about critical mass, I think it's probably like a pre-geo, post-geo revolution. I think we're probably a few months or maybe a couple of years away from that inflection point. So
that's an interesting point to know. And now when we're talking about measurement, we can't leave behind brand safety and ad fraud. So Do you think that the industry is prepared to tackling the same, and what kind of challenges we have currently at our hand?
Sure. When we think of brand safety and fraud, I think we should think of them both as very different things. Brand safety is essential because every brand wants to target its users, right? However, it needs to be in a brand safe environment. No brand would want their ad to show on, some gory news content or on something violent and stuff like that. So that is essential. Just like how a lot of that was taken care of in traditional display digital media, you can do a lot of that on even the CTV front. Another CTV centric use case is competitive exclusions and stuff like that in ad pod. So imagine if you're running a Pepsi ad, you don't want the next ad to be a Coke ad, right? So things like that, the industry is already working on, and some of this can already be done. In terms of fraud, fraud definitely does exist. The fraudsters probably come in wherever they see money, right? Probably even before the advertisers realize it as well, the fraudsters are there. It is a known issue for the medium. However, there are multiple ways to tackle it. Whether you're a publisher or an advertiser, you have to work towards building your in-house stack or leverage third parties. On the CTV space, like I said, it's not a very standardized ecosystem yet. It's very fragmented. It might be challenging, but it's not impossible. Be it using third parties like a human. There's multiple double verify. There's multiple third parties that can help you with preventing bot fraud, all kinds of fraud, whether the TV is on or off. So these kind of checks are there in the industry, and there is technology already to counter it. And both publishers as well as tech partners as well as advertisers need to leverage this and like I said, be open. The industry is evolving and feedback is essential in this space.
I think I'll also add something to that. With economies of scale coming into India, we are the largest population now, 1.4 billion, and we still have a long way to catch up with the Western counterparts where, the smart TV devices will increase in number. So with that kind of a improvement, I think all these products will also get starting standardized, and we'll have a better environment to play in. So that's just something that I wanted to
just
add.
to add to that, a lot of these global standards, it's not just an India thing, it's a global standard because these global standards either are very nascent. So the IAB, which is, sorry if I'm boring you guys with too many tactical things, but the IAB does have some of these standards which have been built very recently. It's the adoption that is still pending at different ends. That is probably because, like I said, it's very fragmented. If you look at your mobile device, you generally have Android on the Play Store, you have the iOS store. Whereas globally, you have the Samsung store, you have the Google store, you have the Amazon store, you have Roku in the CTV world. So it's very fragmented. So what we've seen in the digital ecosystem for display, be it ads.txt, be it sellers.json, supply chain object, all of these are in the works. Some have been adopted by some partners, some not yet. So it's continuous work in progress. Then things like open measurement for viewability technically does exist for CTV. It's just that the adoption is again low. So it's a global thing and everybody's heading towards the same.
Perfect. I think we are in safe hands then. Perfect. So I think we are on time. I have one last question for all the panelists. This is open to all. Feel free to take a jab at it. All I want to understand is, how do you think the adoption of CTV advertising will increase in a market like India? What are the factors that will drive its growth so that it just doesn't end up like any other line item in your media plan?
So I'll attempt, this from a point that the purchasing power is going, the consumption and the purchasing power is rising. The divide between India and Bharat is getting diminished. There is as much aspiration that you see in the emerging youth in the Bharat that you probably restricted to the India per se. If I look at, on the financial context, I think there's a surge on the financialization of assets. The play up of mutual fund Sahi Hai has also been one of the catalysts in driving this growth story. With all of this leading to, smart TV penetration on the rise, I think connected TV is only here to grow. In addition to it, disparate data points, if you look at it, we as an audience have emerged to a more convenience-led approach to our life, right? So today, we like to call out Siri and Alexa in a house. It's much more than we call out some of the family members, and we repeatedly use them to get the instructions out. So I think the voice is going to be one dominating factor. With the emerging potential Internet of Things, I think with wearables, with Alexa, Siri, with the ecosystem coming in with connected TV and 5G, I think there is an emergence of a new ecosystem that will allow this whole connected environment to actually enable a consumer to move from not only the awareness but actually go to the lens of purchase. And that's something which I see would also fuel the connected TV growth story.
I'd like to address this point. I was just wondering on the way while I was coming here. Give me one 18-year-old Gen Z who actually has a linear TV connection at his house if he's staying by himself. Definitely not. These are the guys who are not even cord cutters because they've never got connected. All they've had is CTVs at home. And this is exactly the population that's going to be your next generation. And therefore, this wave of population is going to drive the growth. Last year, probably we were talking about HD as a feed and how it has been growing, things like that. But next year, we will not even be talking about this because probably there is something else that's going to come in. And each and every year, we have to be focusing on audience, which I've been saying from the beginning. I think studying your audience, studying the way they have been adapting is going to be the next thing that we need to be tackling on. And therefore, looking at the current audience, looking at the next population that's going to come in, definitely CTVs are the big thing.
Yeah, I mean, I already answered this. So, like how in the digital space, people who've been around for over a decade, there is the pre-geo, there's the post-geo, there's the pre-pandemic, there's the post-pandemic. I think it's probably a year or maybe a little bit more than that, where it's going to be pre-CTV versus post-CTV. So, yeah.
Prabh, would you like to add something? I started off with you, and I think
I would simply say that I have the proof in the pudding with little over 150 brands that have advertised with us over the last 12 months period. We have 10 case studies for the market, brands who have leveraged CTV. We have a solution now for every part of your funnel, and we see the adoption only growing. I think there's a very interesting chart I follow and I share with my team. It's called the hype cycle. So back in 2 years ago, CTV was a hype and goes through a turf of disillusion that will it work for my brand or not. I think CTV now is crossing that path, is coming to a path where there will be more acceptability to the platform, and we only see more and more brands come on board. So I think sitting here today, fast forward 12 months, a lot of the questions that we're asking today would already be answered, and there'll be more brands saying that it has worked for me than where we are today. So it's here to stay.
Perfect, great. I think, that was a very insightful discussion and some really interesting perspective. I definitely have something to take back home today. And to conclude the session and open the floor for questions, I just want to like to say something that, there's a traditional way of buying media, then there's digital media. I think CTV lies at the center of it right now. It's giving you a perfect environment to marry the big, exclusive, big screen experience with the accuracy of measurement and targeting that digital already provides. So I think this is a very exciting time to be in this space, and let's stay connected with the connected TV. The floor is open for questions. Would anyone like to ask any of the panelists?
Hi, sorry for my sore throat. I'm Neha here and I represent Geo Cinema. I would just like to add to the last point which everybody was discussing, that why CTV will grow. We need to keep in mind that premium content like FIFA and IPL, which was behind a paywall till now, is being offered free by us. So my point is that when linear TV channels are charged at around 20 rupees or 25 rupees, why would people want to pay that money and watch content on linear TVs when CTV is absolutely free of cost? That is one. And the second point is, Jio is themselves coming up with models with a Fire Stick kind of a device, where any TV, whether it is a CRT TV, the cathode ray tube TVs, or your existing LED TVs which are not smart, they will be converted to smart TVs. So on the swipe of your mobile phones, you'll be able to watch everything on CTV free of cost. So these are big catalysts in place which will change the course of CTV in the next 12 months. In fact, next 4 months, because IPL is just about a month and a half away. So like he was mentioning, pre-Geo, post-Geo, in CTV case also, Geo will play the main catalyst there, pre-CTV and post-CTV scenario.
Yeah, please go ahead.
I think we have enough data to substantiate the questions you're raising. One of the interesting things we've noticed last year was that when IPL was streaming during its scheduled time with its previous owner, we did not see a shift in viewership behavior. Like, if people were watching streaming TV, they were watching streaming TV and not watching linear TV. When FIFA came around, FIFA was not initially available on the JioCinema app. There was a delay from the time it was on linear and went to streaming. So we saw for the brief period when it was not available on any app, linear TV kind of go up. And then the moment...
Sorry, I'll just break in here. FIFA was available on JioCinema from day one, right?
It was not... I would say not very well acknowledged, but it was
just
there.
Two matches
Correct.
there. Yeah.
So there was a time, like a small time. So I'm just talking about a very brief period where it was not there. When it came on board, there was obviously outages as well that the platform experienced. So what I'm trying to say is that when you have very specific events which are large scale in its nature, they cause a significant blip in viewership. But once those moments pass, the viewership pattern returns to what it was in the past. So part of your question, which the answer of that question is, you will see a change because obviously you guys are going to make it free and it's going to be across all devices. So we will definitely see a shift in the number of viewership. But once that event passes, right, people do tend to go back to their previous habits for watching other content. Until or unless the other content also becomes free, right, and available agnostically across devices. You will not see much of a shift in the short term.
But from entertainment point of view, entertainment content is offered free. Like if you're watching it the next day, it is free. So once the adoption happens in these 2 months of converting your existing non-smart TVs to smart TVs due to that Geo device, I think it'll go by leaps and bounds. There should be no question around it.
Correct. So the growth will happen, right? No doubt about that. If you look at, we were just talking about this. So if you look at number of pure Amazon Fire TVs out there or Fire Sticks out there, about 10 million of them, right? I think Xiaomi also launched a stick day before yesterday, something of that sort. So the stick business will going to continue. So more and more non-smart devices will become smart. And therefore, people will watch content on bigger screens for that matter, whether they are smart or not smart or connected or not connected. So in terms of answering your question specifically, will the total numbers go up? Yes. As in when you launch these devices, and if they're within their means of reach, people will buy and obviously use that. But will that significantly shift viewership? That is a question which is yet to be answered.
Oh, I would just like to say it will, because IPL is over a period of 2 months, and that's a long enough time to build habit of anybody. So it's up for debate. Of course, we can reconnect in the month of June to talk about this. But I'm pretty confident. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I was about to add to what you just said, and I kind of resonate with you. I think with what Jio is going to bring in with the IPL, we should see a surge on the viewership and also the ecosystem thriving. So as a marketer, I'm pretty confident, and I hope it plays it that way. Jio's anyway brought about a lot of transformation and change with the whole digitization and the ecosystem growth. I'm sure the IPL will be the next big thing.
Great. Thank you, Neha, for the question. Any more questions? Okay, I think we are good to go. Thank you, everyone, for your time. Thank you to all the panelists for their time. I hope everyone has something to take back from today's conversation.